Tyler, we are live.
You have to unmute yourself, Tyler.
Sorry, guys. I was just on a conference call there with all the mayors and the premier and a bunch of ministers there. They're asking a bunch of questions, so I'll go over that with you guys later. So, Chris, we're live. People are watching. We're up and running. Okay. So, appreciate everyone jumping in here tonight. This is not our normal council meeting by any means. And so, an effort to socially distance ourselves and probably for the ongoing future here for the next few weeks at the very minimum, this will be how we conduct a lot of our council meetings. What is interesting is we have some public hearings as well tonight, so it would have been easier just to focus on council stuff, but we are trying out some things. Public hearings basically are bylaws where people have brought forward and want to make some changes, and so we have a procedure for that. So I'll remind everyone real quick how that procedure works. That essentially, once we get into the public hearings, the public hearing is a chance for the development officer to share some information on the application. Council asks a bunch of questions. Then we invite people in favor of the bylaw to speak, then those opposed, and lastly, anyone deemed to be affected. So this is not an open group discussion. So we do have a couple of people on the call here with us that are wanting to speak at those public hearings, and rather kick you in, kick you out, or whatever else. We just said it'd be here until we're done. That being said, those things are done early in the meeting. And so then the actual decision for that actually comes later in the meeting. So then we have actually a huge agenda here, 150 some pages, plus the stuff that we have to do in camera later. And so there's, I don't know, a dozen reports. And so somewhere in there, those public hearings are then discussed, debated, and motions are made. If you have any questions, we'll get into it here in a little bit. But with that, I will start the meeting. I'll also say that normally the Town of Slave Lake is not able to host meetings like this. So the provincial government came out with a blanket mandate for all municipalities that we can do electronic meetings. And so later you'll hear us discussing one of the agenda items is in regards to changing the format and allowing electronic. And so that's so as we move on, we're not under the provincial mandate. It's something that exists in our own wheelhouse. Lastly, one of the things though with these electronic meetings, we have to make sure that the public can view them. And so I think this is kind of silly, but there's an issue that if for whatever reason we lose connection and this thing goes down, we can't just start it up again. We would actually have to physically advertise and start over and do it on a different date. So fingers crossed, that's not going to happen. So obviously the whole world is using Zoom, and 90% of it didn't know it existed a few weeks ago. So they've got a lot of capacity in their system, but we'll see what goes on. Okay, so with that, let's get into it. So first off, we've got the adoption of agenda. And so I'd be looking for a motion to accept the agenda as presented. Sorry, is there any additions or deletions? As I see none, I'd look for a motion to accept. Thanks you, Councillor Brando, for making a motion to accept as presented. Any discussion? Call the question, those in favor. I see hands and thumbs. We are good. So we've got one introduction here with a new employee. And so I'll just touch on that real quick. Usually CEO introduces her, but we're excited to have Wanda Sinclair join us temporarily in taxation. So Wanda has a ton of experience coming over from the ND. She retired and snuck her in for a few shifts for us for a while to help us out. So we really appreciate that. And with that, then we will get into our public hearings. So there's a formal process. I got to read a bunch of this stuff out. And so I will go through that. So we're starting with bylaw number 01/2020. And so I will declare this public hearing open and state that this hearing is held pursuant to sections 230, 606, and 692 of the MGA 2000 as amended. The purpose of bylaw 01/2020 is to amend regulations in the land use bylaw 22/2007 by adding regulations for landscaping for apartments, additional regulations for the RR1 district, and demolition permit requirements. The section on construction workforce facility is being removed as the definition was previously removed. So the notice of this hearing was given to the applicant, the assessed landowner, landowners, and adjoining landowners, and the planning and development officer. This hearing is advertised on the town's website for March 23rd to April 6th of this year. Presentations are to be brief and to the point. We will start with the planning and development officer, followed by those in favor, then those opposed, any person deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard. People that are speaking, please state your name and address. Council will allow questions after each presentation, and I might allow rebuttal. And so with that, for the layman, what does this all mean? This one, the applicant is the town of Slave Lake. And this is one of our own house cleaning bylaws, housekeeping bylaws. And so we'll jump into that, and we'll start with you, Lori.
Okay, Your Worship and members of council, the purpose of this application is to hold the required public hearing and consider second and third reading for bylaw 01/2020. As you stated, the bylaw amends various sections. It is part of our housekeeping bylaw for 2020. The Municipal Planning Commission reviewed this application at its meeting last night and are supporting the bylaw. We also advertised the amendments on the town's website for a period of 2 weeks, and to date, we haven't received any verbal or written comments with respect to the application. I'll just very briefly go over the contents of the bylaw, and they appear in the same order in the bylaw as I'm going to address them in the report. So the first amendment amends the definition for accessory use and the definition for cabins. And that's just to clarify and expand on those present definitions. The second amendment adds a definition for encroachment agreement. In a recent legal opinion, we were informed that if we would like to be able to enforce the need for an encroachment agreement, we have to define it and put regulations within our land use bylaw. The third amendment removes section 13.7b with respect to the NPC unfederated decisions. This came about as a part of a legal opinion received on November 19th, 2019. In addition, we're removing section 36A entirely for construction workforce facility. This section or definition was removed in a previous bylaw. However, we forgot to remove the regulations with respect to that, so we're doing that right now. The fourth amendment removes construction workforce from various sections. So it's just about in every land use district, and we're removing that. The fifth amendment allows the development authority to require an encroachment agreement. As I stated above, if we want to be able to impose that requirement, we have to put regulations in the bylaw with respect to it. The sixth amendment, again, more regulations around the encroachment agreement. The seventh amendment adds a whole section on building demolition. The bylaw was very weak with respect to that, and in light of the recent demolitions the town has undertaken, we realized that there were a number of things that we should be requesting from the applicants, so this amendment does that. The eighth amendment adds landscaping regulations for high-density residential. Previously, there weren't any in the bylaw, and the last amendment clarifies regulations around cabins in the recreation resort district of Fish Bay. I just wanted to also note that we have vetted all of these amendments with Willie Treasure to make sure that it didn't impact the proposed developments going forward in Fish Bay. And that's everything.
Okay. And just for the benefit of those watching and for public, the way public hearings work is that first an application is made to the planning and development officer, and then that planning and development officer brings it forward to council, at which point we set a date for a public hearing, and then that's where we're at today, and we discuss those. So in the two applications, if it's brought forth by an applicant, member of the public, they're not debated when it first comes to council, and so we don't have any discussion on them until this avenue, and so that gives the applicants time to be heard before council makes up their mind. The only reason I bring this up is because this one was brought to us as we are the applicant. The town of Slave Lake is applying itself to change some stuff doing our housekeeping. And so in those particular instances, we do debate it ahead of time. We did that in a public meeting here previously. So just want to, I don't expect a ton of questions with this. Maybe there will be, maybe there won't. But I expect more in when we get into the ones that are public driven. And just wanted to highlight the distinction there. So with that, is there any questions for planning and development on bylaw 01/2020? As I see none, I will then ask anybody in favor of the bylaw to come forward and speak. Anyone in favor? Anybody opposed? Anybody affected? As I hear and see none, I will declare this public hearing closed. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we will make a decision on that later. And so we'll get into, we have 5 public hearings. So number 2, I have to read out the spiel again to make it official. So
Mayor Warman.
Yeah.
I would like to note for the next 3 that I'll be abstaining.
Okay.
And please note that. So if our tech guy can remove me from the room, or I can step out myself.
Okay. We'll see if Chris does kick you out, and it looks like he did. So, Councillor Ferguson is declaring a conflict of interest, stepping out for the next 3, and I'll jump into the next 3, starting with number 2. So once again, this public hearing is open, and it's held pursuant to sections 230, 606, and 692 of the MJ 2000 amended. Purpose of bylaw 02/2020 is to amend the municipal development plan map by redesignating lot 14, block 20, plan 1421046 from downtown to institutional. The notice of this hearing was given in writing to the applicant, the assessed landowners, adjoining landowners, and the planning and development officer. The notice of this hearing, once again, was advertised on the town's website from March 23rd to April 6th of this year. Start again with planning and development, then those in favor, those opposed, and any person deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard. For those that, these ones I do expect some members of the public to weigh in. So when you're ready to speak, if you just want to stick up a hand, and then we'll pause for you to get unmuted and that sort of stuff, that would be great. So with that, planning and development, I'll turn it over to Lori.
Okay, your worship and members of council, the purpose of this bylaw is for this report for council to hold a required public hearing and consider second and third reading for bylaw number 02/2020. The applicant is the Slave Lake Koinonia Christian School Society, and it is lot 14, block 142, 1046, and amends the municipal land use plan map of the municipal development plan to allow a private school to be developed on the site. The Municipal Planning Commission reviewed this application last night and are in support of this bylaw. In addition, referral letters were sent to adjacent property owners, and the public hearing was advertised for a period of 2 weeks on the town's webpage. To date, we have received no verbal or written comments with respect to the application. This application requires 3 plan amendments: the municipal development plan, the downtown and Main Street area plan, and the land use bylaw. And as such, all 3 applications are being processed concurrently. So we'll be dealing with public hearings for bylaw 02, 03, and 04 with respect to this application. A little history: the site was redesignated in 2011 to allow for emergency housing. In February 2020, the planning department received an application proposing to use the planning department has some concerns with this application for several reasons. The biggest reason was really with respect to the potential temporary portables for classrooms, which was indicated by the applicant when he submitted his original application. However, Mr. Ferguson has indicated as early as last night when we discussed it with the NPC, that he was not existing.
Lori, you're cutting out lots.
Okay.
That
Did you not hear?
What's that? Sorry. I think we got the gist of it, but I would say try to speak as close to the microphone as you can.
I'll just have to talk louder. The mic's across the room.
Is it? Okay. Well, maybe it might be more important for you to go by the mic.
Okay, I'll do that. Be right back. All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, way better.
Okay. Okay, so the planning department did have a few concerns with this application. The primary concern was the applicant indicated the use of temporary portable classrooms.
Okay.
And he did indicate last night while presenting to the Municipal Planning Commission that he's no longer moving ahead with the temporary portable classrooms and will be utilizing the existing buildings on site for the school. So I have provided you in the report some philosophy statements and objectives out of the municipal development plan and the downtown and Main Street area plan. The proposed application doesn't align with either of those plans at this point. However, in light of the fact that it will be a permanent school and permanent buildings and not temporary portable classrooms, planning department no longer has a concern.
Okay. So to be clear, you've mentioned earlier that you had several reasons for having concern with this application, but moving forward, you have none.
Yes, the primary concern really was related to the portable temporary classrooms. The second concern was that it doesn't align with any of the philosophy statements in downtown and Main Street area plan and some of the municipal development plan when we were looking at this area. However, it could be quite a number of years before we see any other potential development go ahead on these lands, and it probably makes a lot more sense to make use of the property for a school rather than it sit vacant.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so at this point, I would throw any questions to planning from council. Going once. Councillor Busk, you have to unmute. Go ahead.
So this is the lands that were the old Fish and Wildlife Office north of the existing school.
That's correct.
Okay, just on the package here, there's a circle with a piece of property up in the northwest. So I just wanted to confirm that that is the actual location that we're talking about.
Okay.
Schedule A, Lori, on page 93 of the package has just got it highlighted in the wrong location.
Yeah, I see that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Going once, going twice. Okay, at this point, I would ask those in favor of the bylaw to speak. Those in favor? Mr. Ferguson, I'm guessing you want to. You betcha. If you just want to unmute yourself and go.
Yes. The reason for the purchase of the land is the school is full. We actually have a waiting list, and we're turning away students, which is unfortunate. And this land, which became available, is just prime for us. We had a phase 1 environmental done on the existing Fish and Wildlife building, and it is salvageable, which is really good news for us because it's a lot cheaper to salvage that building than build something that's new or put in portables. So that's why we don't have a use for portables anymore, because we can utilize that both existing buildings actually. And we've kind of freed up some space by doing some renovation work. We're moving stuff around in the existing building, so we'll be okay for this year. But looking at the 2021-22 school year, we should have that existing Fish and Wildlife up and ready to go. And the future plans are to move the K to grade 7 over to the new site and have that basically campus there, and then have high school in the existing town office. That way we can put in a full track and field playground. There's 1.9 acres there, so we're excited about the potential of it.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Ferguson? As I see none, I'll just say, Gordon, that we're always excited to hear of schools expanding, and that that means that we got more students and likely more families, and populations are increasing. Congratulations to have that issue. and love that you guys are being proactive to move things forward. So I did have a concern about some of the temporary as well, but knowing that that has been alleviated, I don't expect a whole lot of concern with this as we move forward. So that being said, those opposed to the bylaw are now able to speak. Those opposed. So Gordon, if you want to mute your thing again. Anybody affected that wishes to speak? Anyone affected? Going once, going twice. Okay, so with that, I will declare that this public hearing is closed. Okay, and so, Jesus, I got too many pages here. With that, then the next couple of hearings are in regards to the same property for the same thing, because they are changing different municipal plans, and it requires a bylaw for each one, and that's why we're doing this again. So next one, I declare this public hearing open, state that is held pursuant to sections 230, 606, and 692 of the MGA 2000 amended. The purpose of bylaw 03/2020 is to amend the downtown and Main Street area structure plan map by redesignating lot 14, block 20, plan 1421046 from downtown north to institutional. Once again, this hearing was given in writing to the applicant and landowners, adjoining landowners, planning and development, was advertised on our website from March 23rd to April 6th. Hearing and presentations will be the same. Planning and development, all days, those in favor, those opposed, and those who deemed to be affected. So we'll start. Development Officer Lori Skrinick, do you have anything new to add?
No.
Any questions? None. Those in favor, Mr. Ferguson, do you have anything new to add? He says no. Anybody else in favor that wishes to speak? Anybody opposed? Anybody opposed that wishes to speak? Any person deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard? And just so everybody watching knows how this worked, we did advertise that if you wanted to speak in favor or opposed or were affected, you had the right to do that. We had a couple of residents reach out to us that did, and so they are on this call. That being said, you do always have the right afterwards, depending on the decision, to go to the SDAB if you file within 2 weeks if you have a concern. Just throwing that out there. So once again, for bylaw 03/2020, anybody that wishes to speak, as I see none, I will declare this public hearing closed. We'll move into the last one in regards to the Koinonia Christian School. Once again, this hearing is, I'm opening and declaring it open. It's held pursuant to sections 230, 606, and 692 of the MGA 2000 amended. Purpose of bylaw 04/2020 is to amend the land use district map of the land use bylaw 22/2007 by redistricting lot 14. Block 20, plan 1421046 from CDC Council Direct Control to Institutional District. Notice of this hearing was given in writing to the applicant, assist landowners, adjoining landowners, planning and development. Was advertised on our website from March 23rd to April 6th. Order the hearing and presentations, planning and development, those in favor, those opposed, and those deemed to be affected. Development Authority, Lori, do you have anything new to add?
No, we don't.
Questions? Those in favor, anything? Those opposed, anything? Those deemed to be affected and wish to be heard? As I see none, hear none, I will declare this public hearing closed.
I'll be bringing back in Councillor Ferguson now.
Okay. We'll wait for him to come back. Okay, Councillor Ferguson's back. Did you do a wardrobe switch? Okay. Last hearing. So I declare this public hearing open and state that this hearing is held pursuant to sections 230, 606, and 692 of the MGA 2000 as amended. The purpose of bylaw 07/2020 is to propose amendments to section 3 and 87-3 to add a definition for food production and as a discretionary use for the C1 downtown commercial mixed use district. The notice of this hearing was given in writing to the applicant, the assessed landowner, landowners, and adjoining landowners, as well as planning and development. It was advertised on our website from March 23rd to April 6th. Order of the presentations will be the same. Planning and development, those in favor, those opposed, any person deemed to be affected and wishes to be heard. With that, Lori Skrinick.
Hey, Your Worship and members of council, the purpose of the report again is to hold the required public hearing and consider second and third reading. The applicant is Devin Phelps, and as you had indicated, he wants to amend the land use bylaw for food production. Currently, the land use bylaw has a definition for agricultural operation. However, the definition really doesn't quite fit what he is proposing. So we did do a little bit of research on it. What he would like to do is add this use to the C1 downtown commercial mixed use district so that he can grow microgreens in the basement of his commercial building and sell them through his store, the flip side. We did the research, as I indicated, and come up with a definition for food production, which means a use where plants are grown to produce food in a building, may include hydroponics, aquaponics, or vertical growing, can be grown on site and processed and packaged, may include aquaculture and raising insects for food, where no dust vibration is seen or felt outside of the building, and where all the processes and functions associated with the use are contained within a fully enclosed building. So the planning department is recommending that food production be added to the land use bylaw as a discretionary use. Also want to comment that the MPC reviewed this application last night at their meeting and indicated that they support the bylaw. And as you indicated, we have advertised for a period of 2 weeks. To date, we have received no verbal or written comments with respect to this application. So if you follow along with the bylaw, the first amendment provides you the new definition, and the second amendment adds food production or that use as a discretionary use to the C1 district. And that's it.
Okay, and so, sorry, Lori, you said the MPC reviewed this and had no issues?
That's correct.
Okay. So normally we'd open questions to Lori at this point, but this is quite interesting. So being the chair, I get to do whatever I want. So I'll just tell you, Devin, why don't you tell us about what you're doing?
Take that off on mute. So yeah, we're looking at growing some microgreens. They're basically immature versions of full-grown plants. They're super nutritious, really packed with vitamins, minerals. And 10 days ago, I started to grow some here, so I have some to show you. I've got some speckled peas, sunflowers, and wheatgrass. So yeah, from germinating to what you see here, ready to harvest, is 10 days. It only uses water, lights, and soil, a little bit of soil. Yeah, totally sustainable. Perfect for right now for what's going on with the food security issue that happens when an event like what's going on right now with this virus. Going to the grocery store and seeing shelves empty and stuff. It's something that I can produce here in town all year round. So it really is about food security, nutritious food security for all of us up north here. So.
Okay. Yeah, so obviously when we see an application about growing and growing stuff downtown, and then we have talking about insects and whatever else, I thought it would be an opportunity for you to explain what you're doing first.
Yeah.
So with that, you can just leave it on there, Devin, but Lori, any questions for Lori, you guys? Going once, going twice. Any questions for Devin? Going once, going, Councillor McGregor.
Will this be something, Devin, that you'll just be doing, or will people be able to grow their own stuff downstairs as well?
Right now, you can do that in your own home. There's nothing stopping you. So we would be looking at selling the equipment as well in our store to get people to do it themselves. So really, so they can provide for themselves. It's really cost effective, more so than having it shipped in from out of town. We're looking at doing subscription style business model. So there's really no food waste because we know exactly how much we need to grow. And because it's such a short-term turnover, we can have that ready for them within 10 days. So some of the other varieties are a little bit longer, some are a little less. So it's, yeah.
And this will be all year round then, Devin? So in the
All year
dead
round.
of winter, you will be able to get
Yeah.
some, okay, right on. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Phelps? Going once, going twice. Okay, sticking with our public hearing format, is anybody else in favor of the bylaw who wishes to speak? Mr. Ferguson?
I think this is tremendous for our town. I mean, I sell produce, of course, at the farmers market the last several years, and most of our produce comes from out of Slave Lake, and the money leaves our community. And so to have something like this also that maybe be able to sold at the farmers market, and also at the flip side, I think is tremendous because it keeps the money in our economy. So I think it's a great thing for Slave Lake.
Okay. Okay, any questions for Gordon? Going once, going twice. Anybody else in favor that wishes to speak? Anyone else in favor? Anybody opposed? Anybody deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard? With that, then I will declare this public hearing closed. I will say, Devin, too, that I think it's very innovative. The council has really been talking about economic development even before all this COVID stuff. Afterwards, I think for businesses to survive and for economies to thrive, we're going to have to be innovative and aggressive in what we're doing. And so I think this is exactly up the alley that council's looking to support. And we'll get into an actual motion on it later here in our agenda package, but I think it's fantastic. Okay, so with that, we concluded page 1 through 3 in our 150-page agenda. So our next thing is our CAO update. Mr. Ferguson and Mr. Phelps, you guys are more than welcome to stay on. We won't let you talk. You can also go live and watch this with the other people. That being said, because you took the time to respond, if you want to stay in here for this whole thing, you're more than welcome to. If not, and you do decide to jump out, we'll make decisions on these later in the meeting. If you reach out to our executive assistant tomorrow, she can give you the feedback as well. With that, then I will jump into, before our CEO update, I've got minutes of our previous meeting on page 4 in our package. These are the meeting minutes from March 17th. Council, any changes, any issues? If not, Councillor Busk makes a motion to adopt as presented. He says yes. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay. And so we will jump into our CAO update. Sorry.
Your Worship, you received a full copy of the update. I just make a couple of comments. I'm pleased under the safety section to see that all employees are well and healthy and are either working from home or working on site. The second one I want to note is under the tax arrears list. It's positive to see that a number of property owners came to an agreement with the municipality, and you can see that they've had to register tax caveats against 11 other properties as opposed to the 34.
That's great news.
Under Public Works, I have to compliment the staff in getting the snow removal done in 3 days' time with the assistance of other loaders, and also to thank residents for moving their vehicles. So you can see how fast it can be done, and maybe council wants to revisit that one day.
Maybe one day, yes.
An application was signed for 130 new campsites at Big Fish Bay, which is positive, and hopefully they'll move forward once they're able to.
Okay.
I note the amount of time bylaw officers or peace officers are having to tend animals in our shelter. And I have asked the department to look at alternatives because that is a very expensive way to handle the animals in our community. Further on, I thank the Parent Link and all the work that they've done in our community as that program is concluded at the end of March. Their recreation, they attended a session on workshops and community living forum, and it's encouraging to see that we are at the top of the list in promoting that forum. So I'm open to questions from council.
Questions from council? Any for the CEO update? Councillor Busk.
Not so much a question. I just wanted to commend the public works staff and everybody. They did an amazing job. That was a lot of snow that came in a short period of time. I know people were upset that they couldn't have it done ASAP, but I think they did an amazing job as it was. So thank you. Pass along my thanks.
I think all of council would throw a ditto in there.
Thank you.
And now we'll move to it all melting and having to keep all the water flowing from one Mother Nature event to the next. Anything else for CEO update? Going once, going twice. Okay, let's jump into our report. So starting on page 12 of our package, we have the municipal internship program. Lori Skrinick.
Okay, the purpose of this report is for council to consider a report regarding the municipal internship program. At the August 1st, 2019 council meeting, council accepted a report regarding the program. The report outlined that during the 2018 strategic planning session, the council made it a priority for administration to create an internal training and internship program. The report outlined the costs that would be incurred by the town and the responsibilities that we would need to undertake once the intern was in place. Council tasked administration with proceeding with the program. So on September 27th of that year, an application was completed by administration and submitted for consideration. Town's application was approved and a list of potential candidates and their resumes were provided to the town in February of this year. In addition, there is a full day course for supervisors of the intern, which was scheduled for April 8th, or tomorrow. So the objective of the MIP program is to train, mentor, and develop recent graduates to become future leaders in government by providing hands-on work experience, professional development opportunities, mentoring and coaching, and involvement in meaningful projects that help the host organization accomplish its goals. In order to proceed with the internship program, the town must prepare a detailed work plan for the prospective intern. We must also appoint a supervisor, and that supervisor must take part in full-day training session in Edmonton and must also ensure the intern receives the training and mentorship outlined in the work plan, which includes period performance evaluations. The detailed work plan will require the town to determine learning objectives and tasks that the intern will undertake in the following functional areas. So municipal government, governance, administration, financial services, and so forth. The plan also contains a section on professional development, which may include attending a conference, training courses, site visits to other municipalities, etc. The town has not yet even begun the extensive task of preparing the detailed work plan or appointing a supervisor. As shown on the attached plan to this report, there are extensive requirements under the program to accept and provide appropriate ongoing supervision and mentorship to an intern. Realistically, the detailed and comprehensive work plan should have been prepared well in advance of the intern selection process. Likely, we should have been working on this
for at least the past year. The town is also in the process of hiring a permanent CAO, and typically the CAO's role with respect to the intern is extensive. Finally, in light of COVID-19 and the additional strain on resources that the pandemic has presented, administration is recommending that the town not partake in the municipal intern program in 2020. Questions?
Seems pretty straightforward, Lori. It's something the council wanted to do to see if we could utilize other resources, help maybe bring in some people and train our own, but capacity obviously being an issue right now. Don't expect there's any issues with this. Councillor Ferguson.
I would just like to make the motion that council directs administration to advise that the town will not be participating in the municipal intern program for 2020.
Any discussion on that motion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, thank you. We will jump into Town of Slave Lake Pandemic Plan on page 20 of our package. And Lori, I see you're doing this one as well.
I am.
Okay.
So the purpose of this report is for council to review and hopefully approve the Town of Slave Lake's 2020 Pandemic Continuity of Operations Plan. The Town of Slave Lake, like many other municipalities in the province, is developing a continuity plan in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. The intent of the plan is to assist council and administration with the continuance of essential functions and services performed by the town. Plan is not intended to replace or supersede any current and approved plan or plans. Rather, it supplements them, bridging the gap between them. So the objectives of the plan are to define critical and vital operations that must continue, those that can be postponed either for the short term or indefinitely. Provide authority to move from normal to emergency operations, those functions that are considered critical. Ensure continuation of services to residents. Prevent loss of confidence in the Town of Slave Lake. Meet regulatory requirements imposed by the province and other regulatory agencies. Provide principles that offer a level of security, support, and safety for employees. Manage successfully through a pandemic and reduce disruption to services. Provide support to Alberta Health Services and mutual aid partners once they activate their emergency response plans. So the plan is attached to the report, to the agenda package. It contains continuity planning and separate continuity plans for each department in the organization. Pandemic planning, as well as general and organizational assumptions, concept of operations, including essential services and communication around those, a list of essential staff, leads and backups, plan implementation, which includes supports for personnel, public health measures, incident command, and state of local emergency provisions, and finally, recovery. The options for council is to either adopt the plan, choose not to adopt it, or direct administration to make changes to the plan and bring it forward to another meeting. So at this point, administration is recommending council adopt the Town of Slave Lake 2020 Pandemic Continuity of Operations Plan as presented.
Okay, and so I'll go to questions from council there. Councillor Busk.
Well, thanks, Lori. It's quite the document that you've given us. Lots to chew on. I think it's going to be another one of those living documents where we have to keep it up to date as much as possible. Personnel, everything like that changes so rapidly. But yeah, as long as we're following provincial standards, I think that's basically where we're taking the lead on this pandemic from anyway. So I like the amount of work that you put into it, and yeah, I'm in favor.
Other questions, comments from council? I had one. Lori, where'd you guys get the template for this?
It was actually the Town of Westlock and regional municipality of Wood Buffalo are both using the same template.
No kidding. I actually thought this was amazing. You know, it goes through, it's 50 pages long. So for the people that are just watching, we're not going to go through every page, but theoretically it breaks out in there all the different levels of pandemic pre and post, and some of the triggers. So it gives us a guide of where we should be at and where we're heading. But a lot of it is about that business continuity. So it talks about different departments. It talks about who works in that department, who can work from home, who can't work from home. It talks about the minimum staff needed for each department to function. Great job on lots of backup in all those departments, even partnering with other municipalities to make it work. I think you guys did a fantastic job. My only recommendation would have been, it's probably minor, when you guys talk about the descriptions of the different phases, it would have been nice to call them like DEFCON. So it could have been like DEFCON 1, DEFCON 2, DEFCON 3 instead of phases. But I think it's probably a minor issue. We could probably stick with what you presented, right? So with that, if there's nothing else, Councillor King. Your audio is muted, Councillor King.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
I'll make a motion that council approve and adopt the Town of Slave Lake 2020 Pandemic Continuity of Operations Plan as presented.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, so next let's jump into, my goodness, what did happen to my page 75? Sorry, let's jump into bylaw 01/2020. This is our housekeeping bylaw, Lori.
Yes.
And I flipped it over. So this is our housekeeping one that we talked about in the public hearing. Do you have anything new to add?
No, other than we recommend that council approve the bylaws presented.
Okay, council, any discussion? If not, Councillor Busk, you ready to play?
I'll make a motion that bylaw 01/2020 to amend various sections of the land use bylaw 22/2007 receive second reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Next, Councillor Ferguson.
That bylaw 01/2020 to amend various sections of the land use bylaw number 22/2007 receives third reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, next we'll jump into bylaw 02/2020. So these next three bylaws are in regards to the Koinonia Christian School downtown. I noticed that Councillor Ferguson is reclusing himself for a conflict of interest. Chris, are you there? Do you want to kick him out for a second? He is kicked out. Lori, anything new to add?
Oh, other than we recommend the bylaw receive second and third reading.
Council, questions? Councillor Busk.
Make a motion that bylaw 02/2020 to amend the municipal land use plan map of the municipal development plan by redesignating lot 14, block 20, plan 142-1046 from downtown to institutional receive second reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Councillor King, sorry.
I'll make a motion that bylaw number 02/2020 to amend the municipal land use plan and the municipal development plan by redesigning lot 14, block 20, plan 142-1046 from downtown to institutional receives third reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, moving along into bylaw 03/2020. Lori, anything new to add?
Oh, not other than second and third reading.
Council, questions? Council, motions. We're on page 101 in our package. Councillor McGregor.
Bylaw number 03/2020 to amend the land use map of the downtown and Main Street area plan by redesigning lot 14, block 20, plan 142-1046 from commercial to institutional receives second reading.
Confirming, Councillor McGregor, that you said redesignating.
Yeah, I got ahead of myself.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Councillor Brandel.
Make a motion that bylaw 03/2020 to amend the land use map of the downtown and Main Street area plan by redesignating lot 14, block 20, plan 142-1046 from commercial to institutional receives third reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Okay, moving into bylaw 04/2020 in our package, which is on page 106. It starts. The motions are on page 111. Lori, anything to add?
Nothing other than we recommend second and third reading.
Any discussion, Councillor Gramlich?
Bylaw number 04-2020 to amend the land use bylaw number 22-2007 map of redistricting lot 14, block 20, plan 142-1046 from CDC Council direct control to institutional receive second reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Councillor King.
Make a motion. Sorry, I'm on the wrong page here.
Page 111. Sorry, I thought I saw your hand. Motion number 2.
I don't have that motion. I just have the MPC motion on page 111.
Councillor McGregor, I think you had your hand up too. And Councillor McGregor's hiding under the floor. I need a councillor to make a motion.
I know, I just put it on the ground now. Oh, are we? Okay, here we go.
111, number 2. Page 111. Okay, at this point, I'm going to make a motion. Bylaw 04/2020 to amend the land use bylaw 22/2007 map by redistricting lot 14, block 20, plan 1421046 from CDC Council direct control to I institutional receives third reading. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Mr. Ferguson, good luck with your renovation, and we wish you the best of success, and we look forward to seeing that in 2021, I believe you said. With that, the other Ferguson, Chris, if you could get him back.
I will be admitting Councillor Ferguson back in right now.
Perfect. Okay, Councillor Ferguson is there. We are on page 115 in our package doing bylaw 07/2020. This is regards to food production downtown as a discretionary use. Sorry, Councillor Brandel.
I would just like to make a motion.
Okay, give her. Sorry, before we get into that, Lori, did you have anything new to add?
Just recommending second and third reading.
Perfect. Councillor Brandel, the floor is yours.
So this is 22-2007, correct?
Yes, page 118, number 1 motion.
Okay. The bylaw 07/2020 to amend section 3 of and 87(3) of the land use bylaw 22/2007 with respect to food production receives second reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. At this point, Councillor McGregor is going to try and redeem herself.
I'm ready. That bylaw 07/2020 to amend section 3 and 87(3) of the land use bylaw 22/2007 with respect to the food production receives third reading.
Okay, any discussion? Any discussion? Councillor Busk?
I'm in favor of this, except everything is green. As you all know, I love green vegetables, but it's all good.
Councillor Busk is a big meat eater. He will never have a garden, I don't think, in his house. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Councillor McGregor, if you want to keep your chicken wings on your desk instead of underneath, it would probably make things go a little bit faster, right? Okay.
Okay, Mr. Warman.
You know, actually, this is the best part about these whole virtual meetings. Like, Chris, how many people are even watching this right now?
At the most, we had a whole whopping 26 people, but right now we have a whopping 13.
13, 4, 8, 12. Well, there's a couple. There's somebody still. Joe's probably still watching out there in the audience. The best part about working in this office is I just shoot a text downstairs and chicken wings show up in here. It is actually amazing. I think we should actually keep this going for as long as we can.
Chicken wings over here too, eh?
What's that?
We want some chicken wings over here too.
Okay. Okay, so let's jump into bylaw 13, 2020 operating short-term borrowing bylaw, Roland Schmidt. You're still muted, Roland.
Oh, there we go. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I do not want to pass this bylaw tonight. I just want to change the motion to accept it as information.
Okay.
With just some new updated information coming down, and some discussions with legal on just some wordsmithing changes. We'll come back at a future date with roughly the same amount, but the bylaw as it is, we just want to make a couple of adjustments to open it up to possible other institutions.
Okay. So let's go through it so that if council has any concerns or whatever else, you've got time behind the scenes to work on that.
So the background here, the town has an operating line of credit since 2020 after the fire to ensure there was sufficient funds available if there was cash flow issues during the rebuild. The operating line of credit again was extended in 2016 to deal with any cash flow issues. While the lines of credits have been in place, the town to date has not made any draws on those lines. And then just as discussion, so this will have to come back soon. The current bylaw in place, bylaw number 14-2016, has exceeded its 3-year mandate and requires a new bylaw to be in place. The town is anticipating a delay in tax revenues for the 2020 year. There was a possibility the town may run into cash flow issues in the year. So it would be only prudent not only to maintain the availability of this credit facility, but also to increase the maximum borrowing potential to address any cash flow issues that do arise. And so I've just quoted the sections of the MGA that we would go ahead with. Section 256 for the operating line of credit, just so we're all aware. The amount to be borrowed together with the unpaid principal of other borrowings made for the purposes of financing operating expenditures must not exceed the amount the municipality estimates will be raised in taxes in the year that the borrowing is made. So I've also laid out for council the debt limit based upon the unfinished audit of 2019, and the debt limit available there at 14 million. If we take a operating line of credit above and beyond what we have with the other ones that we do have in place, we still have about $8.6 million left in our borrowing limit. However, without further amendments to the MGA or to the town's debt limit, we have a good cushion there. However, much of that debt limit is based upon our operating revenues. So any significant drop in operating revenues could impact that, but we do have an $8.6 million cushion built into that formula already without any additional adjustments, which I am hearing are coming to these debt limits. So we're in okay shape there.
Okay. So to be clear, Roland, this is a 6. So we had a line of credit there after the fire that you're basically saying that it expired, right?
Yeah, the bylaw around it, yeah.
So this 6 million is a line of credit, not an additional line of credit, correct?
Right, yeah. So we would not have $9 million in borrowing. It would strictly be $6 million of borrowing once we do pass a bylaw for that amount.
Because that $3 million one that we had since after the fire, we haven't used it in a while either, anyway, right?
Yeah, from my records there was never a draw ever taken on that. There was always sufficient provincial grants that the town did not run into any problems.
Yeah, so I will say that I was in a call there that Minister Madhu and Premier and Dr. Hinshaw, a bunch of them are on, and it was the mayors calling in there asking questions. And so, there's definitely some fear in regards to municipalities around how we are going to fund things as we move forward. So, you know, we've got a budget of 20-some million dollars. Only about 8 million of that comes from taxation. You know, we've got service fees, we got revenues coming in from facilities that help to offset those expenses. Those facilities are closed, and so we're saving some expenses, but some are fixed, and we could potentially see hundreds of thousands of dollars lost in revenues from that. And that has nothing to do even with tax deferrals, taxes that can't be paid, utilities, and so on and so forth. So it is important that we have this something in place to manage this fiscal issues definitely as we move forward. So I'll look forward to seeing the actual bylaw come forward when it's ready. Councillor Busk.
I'm just curious here, maybe I'm missing something here. On page 125, it says in the actual bylaw 14/2016 that it's $3 million.
This is the old bylaw.
That's the old one. The current, that's the one that's enacted right now.
And the new one's on page 127.
Yeah, no, I'm just making sure that it wasn't the same. Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? If not, motion to accept as information. Councillor, ooh, look at them all. King, you're overdue redeeming yourself there too. Let's go. Audio. Go for
I'll
it.
make a motion to accept the report as information.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, so bylaw number 11, our council procedures bylaw. I talked about this one a little bit earlier, Gordon. And so essentially we're going to allow electronic meetings either through a format like this or by calling in. Anything more you want to add on that?
No, that's essentially it. The last couple of clauses within the bylaw does allow an individual that's vacationing, and maybe won't be vacationing in the future, to call in and be a party to the council. So, do you have any other things? You have the recommendation there to proceed with all three readings.
Okay. Okay. So questions from council. Councillor Ferguson.
I just kind of have a comment. I remember this came before council here, probably close to 3 years ago. Yep. And at the time it was the council of the day's will. You know, that majority of the stuff should be done in person because of the nature of council meetings. So I understand it's exceptional circumstances. It's needed for the time being. But I'm wondering if there'd be any appetite to perhaps add a sunset clause to this. So it's not something that goes on forever. Because once this is all over, I think the best way of conducting a meeting is face to face, in my opinion.
Okay.
Your worship, I think it's mostly written so that individual councillors can call into the meeting if they're out of town, and it allows for that to happen. In most cases, hopefully you don't have to do a full council meeting remotely again, but just after the possibility gives you the option to do that if it reoccurs.
So why don't we say, usually in our bylaws, we don't have sunset clauses built in. So it's just, this is what we're doing. So maybe what might be prudent is that I was one of the ones that voted against this back in the day about having electronic meetings. And for that exact reason that Councillor Ferguson brought up. So maybe what we could do, and what I would suggest, is that we make the motions as written here and then do a motion at the end. Maybe a last motion to bring it forward again in 12 months time for review. Thoughts? Councillor Busk.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I'll make the first motion if you want to get going.
Go for it.
Council move First reading of bylaw number 11/2020 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 28/2016, being a bylaw to deal with procedures in the transaction of business by the municipal council of the town of Slave Lake.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Councillor King.
That council moves second reading of bylaw number 11/2020, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 28/2016, being a bylaw to deal with procedures and transaction of business by the municipal council of the town of Slave Lake.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Councillor Ferguson.
The council move consideration being given to the third reading of bylaw number 11/2020, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 28/2016, being a bylaw to deal with procedures in the transaction of business by the municipal council of the town of Slave Lake.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Councillor Gramlich, you ready to play?
Now I am. Council move third reading of bylaw number 11/2020, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 28/2016, being a bylaw to deal with procedures and the transaction of business by the municipal council of the town of Slave Lake.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Lastly, I'll make a motion that administration bring back bylaw 11/2020, the amendment to council procedures bylaw, for review in April of 2021. Joanna is off screen and she's writing that down. Gordon, can you give me a nod that she's good? Gordon, yes. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, so with that, we will jump into 142 in our package, which is our capital projects report. And Kush, you are doing that for us.
Yes. Hi, good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors, and everyone present in the virtual room. The purpose of this report is to inform the council about the current status with the capital project for 2020 due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Background to the report, council requested.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So just for the benefit of those watching, one of the things that council did ask behind the scenes was for these, it was less about a status report and more about the philosophy around what can we manage them as a municipality as we move forward. So we are on unprecedented times, living in a world that we don't know what next month or next year looks like. And so the thought was from council that having gone through a number of incidents in the past, whether it be our own fires, evacuating people to our communities, floods, train derailments, or whatever else we seem to deal with here in the last 10 years, which has been crazy. I will say that we never ever run into an instance where we have too many hands. And so capacity to serve the community is our number one priority as we move forward. And so we wanted to have a look at our capital projects to say, you know, what can we park for right now so we can focus on the bigger needs at hand. I think there's also a fiscal issue that could develop here in the future. And so being prudent, I know every household is watching their own expenses. We need to lead by example and do the same in ours. So what I will say with that is that, Kush, if you just want to get into your attachment A and go through that, I think that I just want to give the pretext of why we're doing this when we start talking about something pending or deferring, that this was driven by council, and this is why.
Right. Okay, I will go over individual reports, individual projects, sorry. First one being Hilltop Reservoir. We are currently in a construction stage. The contract has already been awarded. Status of the report is we are currently working with the contractor to determine if there will be any additional cost associated with the deferral of the project. Approved budget was $1.68 million. Expenditure till date is $132,000. percentage complete 8%. We are the decision on progressing or deferring will be decided at a later stage once we get back complete detail from the contractor. Forecasted expenditure for 2020, it's still to be determined. Just to give you a heads up, we do have few options here to proceed with this with this project. It's either to proceed with procurement of the material and deferring all the site work, or we can defer the whole project until next year or a year after. But the deferring of the project till next year will come back with a significant cost, which once the cost will be provided, we will come back to council and determine its course.
So, Mr. Lundy, for process here, do you want to debate each one here as we go through them, or wait till the end, or how do you want to do this?
Maybe Kush can just run through them. All the rest are really around engineering costs.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Moving forward to secondary project, which is Sewage lift station. This is a carry forward project from 2019. We are currently in post commissioning stage. We have requested contractor to provide some additional out of scope work quotation, and which is just for to improve the efficiency related to maintenance work around the lift station. Approved project was $440,000. Expenditure till date is $326,000. Percentage complete is 74%. At this moment, we can definitely defer this project as majority of the project is completed, and we can definitely rely on the project operation based on the percentage of work completed. Forecasted expenditure for 2020 is around $55,000, which would include progress payment for the work completed till March and potentially some holdback release. Then lift station D replacement. We are currently on conceptual planning stage. Currently, we are working to determine the cost to purchase the land for the replacement of existing lift station D. Council approved budget for 2020 is $500,000 for engineering and design. Expenditure till date is none at the moment. We are currently talking with the owners to determine the cost of land purchase. So at this moment, the recommended approach would be to proceed with land acquisition if possible, and we can definitely defer engineering and design to a later point. Forecasted expenditure, there will be definitely land acquisition cost, plus there will be around $10,000, which would be for the engineering cost to help with planning. Lift station C force main. We are currently in engineering and design stage. 95% of engineering and design is complete. Associated engineering is completing their final drawings, and they will be sending their contract and drawings for town to review. Council approved budget for this project is $1.4 million. Expenditure till date is $47,000. Percentage complete 3%. At this moment, we can defer the tendering process, but it is recommended that we finish the last 5% of engineering and design so that our project is ready to put out to tender just in case if we suspect any positive change with the current situation. Forecasted 2020 expenditure to finish up the last 5% of engineering and design would be around $14,000. Moving on to next project, water treatment plant office upgrades. We are currently in conceptual planning stage. Associated Engineering is working on preliminary work plan and a rough cost estimate for the project. Council approved budget for this project is $400,000, which is just engineering and design for 2020. At this moment, we don't have any expenditure till date. We can definitely go ahead and defer this project, and we can continue planning and concepting at a later point. There will be approximately around $5,000 cost with this project as a forecasted expenditure in 2020 to finish up the work plan. Next one, Sewage Lagoon upgrades. We are currently in construction stage. Project is scheduled to resume sometimes late April, early May. Council approved budget was $14.14 million. Expenditure till date is $12.11 million. Percentage complete is 86%. Our recommendation is to keep this project progressing. It is because we have experienced delays from the contractor in the last year, and the contract has already been extended by 1 year. If we agree to proceed this year, the forecasted expenditure on this project would be around $2 million. There is one additional comment from my side on this project. It is based on the past experience with how the contractor handles site work. Chances are they might come back with significant cost for deferring the project on town's request due to this ongoing pandemic. To minimize such cost, we should go ahead and then decide at a later scenario. Raw water line, we are currently in commissioning stage. Project commissioning is pushed back to a later stage due to the current scenario. Council approved budget is $18.59 million. Expenditure till date is $18.44 million. We are almost like 99% complete on the project. At this moment, we can defer the commissioning stage until later period. This is due to it is hard to maintain social distancing when we carry out commissioning procedures. So it's basically hard for our utility crews and the contractors to maintain social distance while they are doing commissioning. Forecasted expenditure would be around $5,000. There is one additional comment on the project. The expenditure number that are showed on the sheet are based on Town of Slave Lake's sheet. Actually, MD of Lesser Slave River was also involved in the project, and they were initially paying off vendors directly or from their end. So we have requested a meeting at a later point to go to the project finances from both sides so that none of the information is missed. I will be putting out a report to council once those numbers are verified. Moving forward to
Kush, just on that one, there's a discrepancy between our number and the MD number?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had requested meeting, but actually they were busy with auditing and this ongoing pandemic came up. So we will be doing it at a little later point.
Okay.
Moving on to next project, which is Glory Land Road Rehab. We are currently in engineering and design stage, and 95% is already complete. Associated Engineering is completing the final drawings and contract documents for our review. Approved council budget on this project is $2.19 million. Expenditure till date is $32,000. Percentage complete, 1% is complete. At this moment, we can defer the tendering process, but it is recommended to finish up the last 5% of engineering and design so that we have our project ready to send out to tender if we suspect any positive change with the current scenario. Forecasted expenditure for 2020 to finish up the last 5% of design would be around $12,000. Additional comment on the project, we are looking forward on getting competitive rates due to lack of on-hand work with the contractors at this moment. Plus the overall economy is down, which will add an advantage to the project owner, especially with the cost-wise.
So Kush, you're looking forward to that when we decide to tender it, or you're saying that you're looking forward to it as you're wanting to tender now?
No, we are deferring the tendering process at this moment. Okay. Yeah, but okay. we will finish up the engineering and design.
Okay.
Moving on to next, CN Caribou crossing lights and gate. We are in conceptual planning stage. Town is awaiting an update from CN regarding this project. Approved council budget is $33,000. At this moment, we can definitely go ahead and defer as we haven't heard anything back from CN at this moment. Just to give you a heads up, this project has been pushed back several times. It is just due to CN was not able to accumulate enough budget to carry out this project with Town of Slave Lake.
Yeah, so just for everyone's aware, and council is aware of this, but because public could be watching this, this is a project that is conditional on a grant that we applied to Transport Canada for. So that grant goes into Transport Canada every year, and CN partners with that, and our percentage on this is like less than 10%, and that's the reason, if we got it, we would move ahead. If we didn't, we're not. So that's fine to park that one and push, keep going there.
Yep. Next one is Daycare building demolition. The project is already complete.
Yeah, pretty tough to back on that one at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
But should I give you forecasted numbers though?
Keep going. What's next one? 88.
Which will be Highway 88 pedestrian crossing, which is a part of community services project, but it is, I would be the one who will be taking care of this project. We are currently in conceptual planning stage. We have sent out our proposal to Alberta Transportation. We are waiting to hear back from them. Council approved budget is $200,000. At this moment, we can definitely go ahead and defer this project. Next one is Hilda Eben Park upgrades, which is also a community service project. At this moment, we are on conceptual planning stage. Town is working to determine estimate on this project. Town approved budget is $121,000. The project can definitely be deferred at a later stage. Just to let everyone know is that the information provided is based on current scenarios with COVID-19. Future perspective with individual projects may change if we observe any favorable settings. An update will be provided to the council if required to proceed differently.
Okay.
So okay. Any questions?
You're going to keep an eye on the market, and if all of a sudden something makes sense that we should jump on something, you're
right.
Okay.
Yep.
So from these 13 projects that are listed here, what I see is that you've basically got a plan for 12 of them. And the one, the Hilltop Reservoir, there's a question around whether we procure material or if there's added costs and so on and so forth.
Right. And
let's focus on 2 through 13, and we'll come back to Hilltop last. Does council have any issues or questions on deferring any of the other 12? So the idea is we'll finish some of the things that are there, finish the engineering, basically get ready for when the time comes. Ideally with the engineering is basically the plan that lays it out. A lot of the stuff, whether it be roads or buildings, whatever else, theoretically the plan really shouldn't change from year to year. So having that plan ready, and that's the minor part of the cost, that'll make sense to us by the looks of it. So jumping back to Hilltop Reservoir then. So are you asking, or is there still more to be figured out here? You're still going back and forth? Okay.
Yes, contractor is supposed to provide us numbers on different deferral scenarios, whether to defer the project by completely 1 year or defer it at a later stage at 6-month period, 3-month period. So we have requested that information in, and we are waiting to hear back from them.
Okay, so we can expect some more information on this one in a different council meeting, correct?
Yep, so absolutely.
Okay, so knowing that, I say we park it. You know, one of the things obviously that council really directed in this was, you know, we didn't really want to have any cost implications. So if we got a contractor holding us to task, that's going to cost us a whole bunch of money to defer. You know, that's definitely not a road that we'd really want to jump and run down to if we didn't have to. That being said, too, with the amount that we are deferring, to only have, you know, basically one project on the go probably would be okay from a capacity standpoint. I will say I don't love the idea of procuring material and leaving it on site and sit there for a year or whatever till it goes. I'd rather just buy it when the time comes, so you don't have any issues there of stuff going missing, stuff deteriorating, or whatever else. If there's a significant cost savings by doing it that way, I get it, but just to have it sit on there so it's ready to mobilize when we go, I don't know if that's actually worth the expense myself. I'll leave it at that. It doesn't really matter at this point. You're going to come back to us with more information.
Right.
Well, on that, Mr. Mayor, we have talked about options of getting a couple sea cans to, if we do go that route, and store the materials in the sea cans so they'll be out of the elements and stuff like that. So
why would you even want to buy a Kelvin to begin with? Like, why not just not have the sea cans and just buy it when we need it?
well, it's all depends on markup this year to next.
Fair enough. Okay.
It's a huge cost. If it's more efficient for us to buy two sea cans, two 40 or 50 foot sea cans, and put the materials in versus buy them next year, we'll look at that.
Okay, fair enough. That is always the question. Are things going to be cheaper or more expensive in the future?
That's right.
Okay. If there's no other questions or comments, and so I know that some of these are going to be huge political things that people will get quite upset that we're not moving forward, especially the Lift C force main, the Lift D replacement. I'm just kidding. Most of the public has no idea what that is. It's just moving water and sewer. But obviously, Glory Land Roads, I know that there's been some frustration from the property owners out there for quite some time about that. We made a commitment to doing that. Park upgrades are obviously something that everyone loves to see. And I will just say that we are not canceling these projects. We are not saying that these are no longer important. None of these projects were a want. They were always a need. Instead, what we are doing is saying, let's hit the pause button. Let's see what the future holds. And if we have to go back and reprioritize, we will. If the conditions or capacity or market determines, hey, it makes sense to move ahead, we will. But we want to watch our own bank account like everybody else, and we want to make sure that our staff are available to do the things that are more important at the moment. So appreciate administration taking the time to bring this information forward, and residents, bear with us. The time will come. With that, I'd accept a motion to accept his information. Thank you, Councillor Brandel. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. So we went through the public portion of our meeting. At this point, we have a number of other topics to talk about in camera. As Mr. Ferguson Sr. would know, that this is where all the sexy stuff happens there in all the council meetings.
Mayor's Corner.
Are you going to do your Mayor's Corner?
Oh yeah, Mayor's Corner. Yeah, sorry, I should do that. Mayor's Corner, what's going on in the world of the mayor? Yeah, so I will say that the last couple of weeks has been interesting, to say the least. Keeping updated on the information every day. I never listened to Justin Trudeau so much in my entire life. And that has been interesting all in itself. That being said, you know, Dr. Hinshaw and the Premier's updates every day to see what's going on. Things obviously changing rapidly from day to day. In the early days, now it's a lot about stay the course and get ready for the economic impact. Get ready for an increase on the health system. And I will say that to the public, you know, we've been doing a ton of communication, and they seem to keep asking for more, so we'll deliver it as we can. That being said, you know, a lot of it's going to be status quo here as we move forward, so there'll probably be less updates I do thank communication for doing a fantastic job there to get my information out promptly. People have been doing a very good job about listening, paying attention, and sticking to what our community needs. So I will emphasize again that great job there. To our businesses, as a business owner, I got to tell you, I've never been so terrified in all my life. And some days that's a bigger mountain than even this mayor job is right now. Um, you know, it is no doubt that the world has an economic impact here coming. We have no idea what that is going to be, but I am thankful to see that we have two levels of government that recognize it is going to be significant and recognize they are going to have a significant role in playing in that rebound of that economy. So I think that's positive news. I expect a lot of the supports to roll out over time in different phases as they're needed. And I think, you know, one of the things I learned from the fire in 2011 is, you know, it's easy to look over your shoulder, walk into this room filled with a whole bunch of people, or look up and say, you know, somebody else has got this. That being said, in reality, no one else has ever experienced this. So all of those levels of government, our own administration, our own people, our own businesses, we're all trying to figure it out together as we move along. And one of the benefits in this one, whether it's a benefit or not, is it was tough. It was tough explaining some of the, you know, the frustrations, the adversity we were facing in 2011 to people who weren't experiencing it, to other communities, to people in the province. They didn't get it because they weren't part of it. One of the things now is that as we speak up, they are going to get it. Everybody in the entire world is feeling what we're going through. So I am comforted by the fact that we're all in this together. And you know, if experience serves me right, we always find a way, and we will. So we'll have to put in the work to get where we need to get, but I'm confident we'll get where we need to get. So I do want to say too to the businesses that have taken this very seriously. And so I started talking about businesses. I know that the stress of being a business owner is, man, I need to chase whatever revenue I can, reduce expenses. I need to do whatever is possible to keep myself alive here. That being said, a number of these businesses have said, you know, I'm going to do what's best for the community. I'm going to limit my amount of customers. I'm going to shut down totally. I'm going to reduce quantities or put things in measure. And I just want to say, you know, still being out there, buying goods, talking to different business people in Slave Lake, I got to tell you, you guys are doing an amazing job adhering to what your community needs. And I understand how stressful it is to do that, but I appreciate everything that you're doing. Chris, again, great job on the COVID site. For those that haven't seen, or maybe on Counsel you haven't seen, but on our Town of Slave Lake website, we actually have like a page that's designated to COVID. We're putting updates there. There's links to the economic and financial resources, health updates. I think it's a great resource. Make sure that you're using it. I did have a conference call yesterday in regards to homelessness. There was a big issue that came up, and around, you know, we're very thankful that the Friendship Center does a lot with homelessness and really champions that for us. Leaders on the MAP program, but some of the discussion has been around, okay, if we get someone that comes in and they have symptoms, how do they isolate? How does the Friendship Center isolate them? The Friendship Center, first and foremost, is not a shelter. They're not a homeless shelter. They're not equipped to be a homeless shelter. They do you know, part-time evening work during a specific season to make a difference here. And so the question was how we move that forward. So I reached out to RCMP, Alberta Health Services, the hospital, our bylaw, our community services, and so on and so forth, our health inspectors, and everybody was able to jump on the call. We've got some immediate plans there, basically about just forwarding them to the hospital right now, because that's the method that we have to take. Isolating them versus sending them back out in the community is going to be the priority. That being said, also working behind the scenes to see if there's some more medium and long-term solutions that we can come up with. So that was something I was working on yesterday. If you didn't see as well, I've had a ton of residents reaching out for all kinds of stuff, whether it be business concerns, resident concerns, you know, taxes, utilities, all that kind of stuff. Council's going to discuss some of that here in the coming weeks. We'll share what information we have. You know, one of the things about deferring taxes, deferring anything, is we don't have a big brother up there to fill a pot for us. So as the pot empties, it's really taxpayers. We all collectively put money in a pot, and that's what runs this town. So if all of a sudden we stop putting money in the pot, when the time comes, we got to figure out how we fill it again. We're in that together. So we don't take these decisions lightly, and they have big impacts. So we're going to take the time to really assess those ones. I did have a resident reach out to me that was very concerned about, and I've had a lot of residents actually. I'll give credit where credit is due. Hey, I've got equipment. Hey, I've got time. Hey, I'm ready to volunteer. It's like the days of 2011 right after, where I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and do whatever it takes. Let me know what you need. My message to all of them is stay home, and when you are out, be proactive. Wear the gloves, wash your hands, social, physical distancing. Those are the things that we need right now. That being said, one of the things is, we get all busy and we forget about a lot of stuff. And, I understand it is stressful for a lot of different groups, but I definitely feel for the medical community there who's, working in an environment where we're telling everyone else it's not safe to go out. And we're saying, hey, if you're really sick, you go hang out with these people. Every day there's talk about cuts, and there's talk about, do I have enough PPE, and are we going to be able to help people? Not devaluing the other things, but it is a very stressful job. And I did say it would be nice to figure out a way to kind of reach out and thank those people. And so Corey Hughes reached out to me and said, what can we do? He came up with the idea of acknowledging doing something through video. And so a post went out today where we're basically asking members of the community, people out there, to either do a quick 10-15 second post saying, hey, thanks to you. Maybe it's pictures, maybe it's something they put together. He's going to put it together in kind of a video roll collage that we're going to share and put out there, just highlighting it, that I hope people take the time to do it. And secondly, thanks for Corey for stepping up and taking that project on. So in the coming weeks, there'll be more communication. It will be trying to understand the different changes that come up. The message from the Premier today was loud and clear that she's going to be status quo here for the next 8 weeks, give or take, and really see where things end up. So I did do a quick communication update that came out. I don't know, Chris would know, but it was probably coming out while we were doing this meeting. The things that we touched on were two things. One, we've had our numbers bounce around in regards to number of infected. We were at 2, we're at 3, we're at 2, we're at 4, we're at 4 recovered. People really get hung up on numbers. And my wife watches the Dr. Hinshaw update every day. It doesn't matter what I have to say. When Dr. Hinshaw comes on, there's nothing more important than listening to her. So I get the emphasis on people that want to listen to the numbers and listen to what she has to say. That being said, the numbers are a guide. They're a little tab there in the whole world of things that are going on. And first off, we have to, if we're going to make big life-altering decisions, we have to feel comfortable that we know that somebody is actually coding all those numbers right, got them in the right regions, got all that right information going on, that they've and I will say that I think AHS is they're doing a great job. I've got no issues there, but I wouldn't bank my whole entire life and philosophy on those numbers that come out every single day. Secondly, is that we are not an isolated group. We have people coming and going throughout this community. And so we need to, it takes time, obviously, for people to show symptoms, and so basically the message remains the same: stay the course, stay the course, stay the course, stay the course, stay the course. That's all I can keep sending out there. And lastly, a lot of questions around, hey, can I find out who's infected? Because if I find out who's infected, then I know I can avoid them. Or can you tell me what store they went into so that I won't go into there? That's craziness. Obviously in the medical world, we don't release anybody's personal medical information. These people are not criminals. These people are not out there to destroy our economy, to destroy our lives. They are people who got a disease, got infected from something they couldn't see. No different than I touch a door handle and get the flu. And if you have kids that are in kindergarten, they bring home everything for the first 2 to 3 years of your life. You didn't bring that on yourself. That's just called life. So we will not be sharing that information as we go along. It's silly to even ask that. I understand why people ask that, because there is fear, there is anxiety. And so I remind people, take a deep breath, feed your mental well-being, feed your physical well-being, and stay the course. This is not going to change anytime soon. So with that, that's my life, the mayor's update. Any questions? If not, I have no idea what tomorrow will bring. I look forward to it. None of them are boring. So with that, I would entertain a motion to go in camera. Councillor Boss, any discussion? Call the question, those in favor. So for all those that are on the call, we do know that we have a different venue there now to log in to do this. That being said, Chris, you can monitor everybody that's on this anyway, right? I just saw that Gordon jumped out. Do we need to log out and log back in?
Let me just stop the live stream and then I will give you an A-OK. But if Gord wants you to go to the next room, we can do that as well.